Going to self-destruct. I don't know. He'll look. Every time I try to do something to him, I mess him up.
That'd be
Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
And so what we've came to find out is whenever it drops like that, it's still recording. And then they can go in and do something to it.
Watch it or whatever.
And
Really?
fix it. Yeah. So that's a good thing. You didn't actually lose it. It's just,
So we probably shouldn't have that conversation while we was down.
oh, that's fine.
That's okay.
All right.
See, I could handle that part.
You like the hammering part, huh?
And so that right there sets the thrust.
Yeah, we just set the thrust. And I had already set the thrust on the block previously.
Right.
So all of that was done. I'm just getting the bearings where I want them before I torque them down.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know you're working through lunch today, huh?
I kind of had an idea. It's okay, though. Okay with a late lunch.
Where'd the bag of donuts go?
Oh, man. I didn't know there was donuts.
Salt.
Well, there goes my lunch. All right.
You brought them?
And I got the tiny things out. It was Martin's idea. The tiny
Ooh.
things and the donuts.
The kids did that. That just tells me that you both are very similar in maturity.
It's so funny. All the sweet videos.
All right.
But I do think doing the live feed later in the day would be more successful.
Really?
As far as like live viewership goes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it takes more commitment though, because it's after hours when we got kids and stuff. That's hard.
Yeah.
Whenever I get asked to do a podcast with somebody, I always just go up my shop so that the house can keep thriving of being the house.
Yeah.
And then I'll remove myself and go sit out there in the shop
Can you, I mean, I assume you can record it.
and post it later. Mhm. Yeah. The difference of doing that is that whenever you're live, it sends a notice to everybody that you're live versus whenever you post a video, they have to be following you for
See it, yeah.
them to see it.
Oh, so you gain more new viewers from going live then.
Right.
Okay, that's cool.
And then you also record it over to YouTube. And now you have content for people to continuously come back and watch. We're obviously learning, but
You know,
it's a struggle
I
to
hate
figure it
say
out.
this, but we're both an older generation
Yes.
now and trying to figure it out. Social media. I'm not a social media person. I don't understand it. I'm not doing it. So
I struggle there. You know, my kids were all about watching these YouTubers and stuff. And even with Garrett, I remember whenever he told me what he was doing, and I was like, what? And I just couldn't wrap my mind around it until my kids got old enough to show me what's going on. And I'm like,
that guy
wow.
is brilliant.
Oh, dude, he's
Yeah, he's doing his thing.
Unbelievable.
I was at a race. So whenever he was working for 1320, he told me what he was going to do, right? And I just couldn't see it. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I was at a race, and he came over to talk to me at my booth, and I was like, why aren't all those people in line over there? And he's like, to see me. I'm like, why? And he goes, I'm kind of a big deal. I mean, obviously, I'm obviously living underneath a rock. You know what I mean? Like, and you do what? You know, and he explained it to me, and I wasn't trying to be an idiot. I just couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that, and man, he has done so good. He's like really set a level for what's achievable.
He has.
And,
he has done something that I never thought was possible.
No, that's just. And then my kids are like, I can't remember the Mr. Beast and all that stuff. I mean, those guys have really kind of changed the way that things are. Everybody wants to be entertained. The day of doing technical videos and stuff like that gets very little reach unless somebody really wants to know about something that's there. But if you can do it in an entertaining way, you're actually drilling some knowledge into somebody without them even realizing it.
Yeah.
What do you torque those to?
45.
45?
45 foot-pounds.
So the mains are 70.
Yep.
And then this, what do you call this? It's obviously is it a side main?
The side bolt. Yeah.
Side bolt?
That 10 mil bolt he was talking about earlier, the larger
Okay.
bolt.
He saved this next part for you, so you're actually going to have to work on it.
Oh, yeah?
You can't just stand there with your arms crossed.
I get to.
He said it will take you 5 minutes on the time.
What am I doing?
Oh, that's not what I said.
That's what I heard. He said,
I
I get a
I
screwdriver and
said-
a hammer?
he said if
Yeah.
he has any idea what he's going to do, that's it. That's what I heard.
There's normally
All
a
right.
pretty good bet that I have no idea what I'm doing.
All right. Yeah, I think we're ready to assemble the pistons to rods.
Sweet.
Let me get all this stuff cleaned up and.
So you see me walking towards the bench and you put up the knife. You
Oh
must
yeah,
know me.
yeah. Just in case, you never know.
Remove all sharp objects.
Look at him. He's been poked before. Stay away from sharp
Yeah.
objects.
All right. I think we're. That's yours. Okay.
I like that you're organized.
I have to be, otherwise it drives me crazy. I've got
Do
to
you
be
have
clean,
OCD?
organized, and everything's got to be within reach. I work so much better that way. If
You would
it's
think that'd be
cluttered,
important for this position.
yeah, I think so.
Generally, messy people don't have long-term.
I tell my guys that your work environment is a reflection of the type of work you're going to do.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
That's true.
I like that. Yeah, so I like reset everything in my bench while I'm working because it helps me stay productive. You know what I mean?
So tell me about the Boost Line brand. Is that fairly new or?
Yeah, it is. It's very new. It's I'm pretty sure it was a spin-off of WAZZUP.
Yeah.
WAZZUP owns Boost Line. It's all Raceway brands, but
Yep.
Okay.
yeah,
So-
they're relatively new. It's a
Fantastic rod.
It's a budget-friendly, high-dollar rod. You know,
Okay.
I mean, it's a strong rod that really supports quite a bit at a price that really wasn't possible before. So it's pretty neat thing they've done with them. It's been a really popular rod for us.
Right. Now I noticed
Nice.
from looking at the crank, y'all have already balanced it.
Yep.
What's the balancing process there? We didn't really cover that.
So they take a rod piston combo with rings and everything on it, and big bob weights. With that bob weight, they create a bob that they hang on them. So it'll hang on all four.
Mm-hmm.
It spins it on the machine. The machine is able to sense the imbalance. Our equipment is pretty modern. We use a company called TNS for our balancers, and they do a really good job of making a machine that is very simple to understand. You know, a lot of the older stuff, you were looking at sweeps of needle, so you had to have an operator that was really paying attention to what's going on. This gives us 360-degree increments, and you spin it until it hits the grain, and then it'll tell you the depth to drill. If you are adding or reducing or what it is you need to do. So it gives a lot of information for you. It also allows, it'll do the calculations when you put the weights in it. And you can put things in there like over or under balances. Again, coming back to what's the use of the motor.
Mhm.
So we will do an overbalance on them. So usually 1 or 2% depending on the use. But we can put that in and calculate, figure it, and then give us the information we need to do the balance itself. Some of them, if this one doesn't have, but some of them will have weights that we add. And these don't have them, but some of them will take and actually machine on the ends, on the inside here, and put plugs in. There's some like the billet stuff that is no drill, so you'll actually go and put too much weight in it and come and turn the counterweights down, which is an option on anything. It just about quadruples the expense of the balance.
Right.
And then you've got some of the liquid stuff, like your crankshaft here that's center counterweighted. This is something that's relatively new to the LS world. Center counterweighted cranks, the factory cranks only had counterweights here, so you didn't have anything in the center that you could use to really stabilize the crank. When they added those, what we noticed is that there used to be that number 2, number 4 main wear that you would get an oscillation of the crank. That has pretty well eliminated it. We really don't see that anymore, which is pretty incredible. So there's some nice advancements in it. There's a difference in each of the cranks, the way they do it. So this crankshaft and the dart crankshaft are very similar. The material is the same. The Manly crank, they do come in and do a cut on it, so they're actually able to reduce some of the weight, but put the weight where they need it. They both work really well, but this is nice because it gives us the clearance on the webbing. So if we do a full center counterweight, like a dart crank, we have to come in and machine a lot of this out to give room for the counterweight. So, again, stepping back to it, what's the use of it? If it's going in a dart block, it really doesn't matter if it's dart design there's around. If it's going in these, this is a little nicer because we don't have to worry about taking some of the strength out by doing that was designed into it by the manufacturer.
Gotcha.
So, now that being said, we have machined hundreds of them, and we haven't found that we have come up with any strength issues. So we can do it. It's really not a problem, but it prevents us from having to take any of that out and even put the question.
Now, what brand is this crank?
That was a Manly.
Manly? Okay. And my first, the first build of my LSX motor, it didn't have a center balance crank. And so when the school freshman, we put a center balance crank in it.
Yeah.
And
It really does make a big difference. It is amazing looking from a standpoint of a company that does a warranty on a race engine. It's kind of early on, I remember we were accused of committing financial suicide by doing this because there's no way you can offer a warranty on something like that, right? But when you do that, you've got to really track what's coming back and what's causing them. And early on, you had some of the things that it was just tough to have control over, like the number 2, number 4 on big stroke motors. It wasn't one of those that it happened on every motor, even common enough to say we're not going to sell it. But in certain situations, at certain sustained RPMs, you would see it. So having stuff like this come out, just advancements in the industry, especially for someone like us who actually stands behind these products, is great to have.
And that's got to be big and risk taking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, no doubt. Now, whenever they buy a motor, it comes with the warranty. They don't have to buy extra.
Yeah, so
warranty,
we've got
or do you-
several different warranty packages. It comes with a warranty standard, and we've got some extensions you can do to take it up to a 2-year warranty.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've
That's pretty
got
good.
different options.
Especially for something that they're buying to beat on.
Right.
Yep.
And that's, we are building a product that is designed to fail at some point. I mean,
Right.
we build a product that
It's a mechanical part. It's going to fail.
Yes,
Yeah.
it cannot by design last forever. It is designed to go in and have its brains beat out of it. So we go and I kind of smiled when you asked Carlos about the rating because I was curious to see what his response was. But we have to look at that and go, okay, if we're going to stand behind this, we've got to give a really realistic expectation of power, right? What can they really push us to that is going to be sustainable? So when we put a rating on these, we've got customers sometimes that will give us a hard time. I mean, if you get online and just look, you can see that the stock stuff.
This stock 5.3 made 1,500 horsepower on the dyno.
It might do that in a controlled environment once or twice, But what we're talking about is we're going to build you a motor and tell you if it fails doing what we tell you it's going to do, we're going to fix it or replace it for you. And that's something that is a pretty
that's
steep
unheard
hill to
of.
climb. So we've got to be real cautious in the way that you rate them. And it's funny to hear Carlos talk that way and say, "Oh, let's talk about that," you know. And it went from 15 to 2,700 horsepower. And it's because it really
Depends
is
on how it's
that
being used.
big. What are you going to do to this thing? I got to know what you're going to do before I can tell you that.
Right.
You know? So
And that's got to be an average. That's got to be a question that every customer asks.
it is, and it's a conversation that we have regularly when releasing new products is what do we want to give for a rating? Because when it comes down to it, we do have to create some kind of rating. You know, I mean, anytime we put out a new product or a build that we're doing, we have to rate it
Right.
to something to give the customer an idea of what they're looking at. So we have a lot of conversations and we go, okay, if we're going to use this and we've got to look across the spectrum, we've got nitrous, blower, supercharger, turbo. If we're going to put it across all applications, how are we going to rate it and what are the weak points through each of these? You know, when you look at crankshafts, we've really got to look heavily at something that's crank driven. So a crankshaft that has a rating for a turbo or a nitrous motor is not going to be the same as something that has a rating for a blower or a supercharger motor that's got something yanking on the snout all the time. We've really got to consider what we have right here, because this is where they're going to break. You're going to break right there, right? So we've really got to take that into consideration when we create the rating for it. So the reality is, when you look at a crankshaft, what we have in mind is worst case scenario. So we got to rate thinking something's yanking right here.
Right.
When you take that off and do a nitrous or a turbo application, we don't have something yanking on anymore. I don't really have to worry about the rest of it. The rating is going to go up quite a bit, you know, and it's the same with the block. How's it going to be pulled or pushed? You look at the billet blocks that have these 4,000 horse ratings, huge rating on it. But when you take the motor plate off and use the motor mount,
Now
they
you're
jokingly
stressing
give
it.
us an 800 horse rating. You know, they're like, we can't rate it to anything because the motor's not designed to be held that way. So if you're going to do it, treat it as though it was a junkyard pullout because it's going to pull the block apart and it's going to make the sleeves come loose. You know, so it is so situational. So
A lot of key factors. So I know she just marked this, and I'm
Yes.
assuming that's your mark. I torqued it.
Yes, so I usually do it right after I torque them, and I honestly forgot. So I wanted to do that before I forgot and didn't do it at all. So
And I've noticed that on the other motor that I got from you.
it's all painted.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, so you're going to see with every motor we build, the paint pen from the builder and the paint pen from the QC. So you're going to have two colors of paint, which allows us to, as easily as in a Facebook post, look at a motor and say, Dustin built that, Marty built that, Ryan built that, Marty QC, Ryan QC. We know who did it by glancing at a photo of it.
So each one of y'all have your own color.
Yeah, everybody has their own color. I mean, and that's within the whole building. There's nobody here who has a duplicate color. So even if you get back in the back shop, if someone has to mark something, when they're marking it, it's with a color that's designated to that employee. And we do that so that we can track stuff, even our equipment. Our equipment, when we go through and we build those books, it indicates in the book for the motor which piece of equipment it went on and came off of so that we can track the equipment, the usage.
If it got out of
If we have
spec
a
or
piece of
something.
equipment that's starting to, you know, if we have them coming to cylinder hone and all of a sudden instead of being 8 to go, they're 13 to go, then we got to look at a piece of equipment and go, okay, why is it? Which one is it that's yielding us a result that we don't want and we need to, you know, address that.
Right.
We do that with it. We track everything.
That is awesome.
We have 20 pictures of every motor that leaves here. We've got, it's about what are they, 18 or 20 page book that starts with them from the moment the block comes out, who pulled it out, what measurements they got on everything on it, anything. I mean, just checklist after checklist after checklist with the signature of who did it. And then it moves to the next and it gets another piece of paper. Moves to the next and gets another and another. So we do that because back to the original conversation we were having, if I got to stand behind it, if something goes wrong, I have to track it to its origin. You know, do we need to update a policy? Do we need to update personnel? What is it that created the problem? Because we have to fix it now.
Right.
You know,
That makes it. That's the reason we take pictures of every direct port or any custom work we do. We take
Yeah.
pictures of it,
You've got to.
and that's and because sometimes you get some that somebody else bought from somebody else, and you're like, no, that I didn't do that,
Yeah.
and it's all serial number too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you do it. There's so many reasons you've got to do it, but you're doing it not only for tracking for your own problems, but also for protecting yourself. Because we have also, in the room we're standing in, if you look behind me, we got a camera that's watching him, and a camera that's watching him, and there's a camera that watches every piece of equipment through here. We hold all that down. And I have had, I had one that we had a motor that left and had the customer call and say that we didn't torque the mains on it, and that we needed to pay to have it fixed. And we went back and looked at it.
That's cool.
Local pickup.
Oh, wow.
So we were able to send a video from the moment it started the machine process all the way through until he picked it up that showed not only one but two different people torque the mains. So sent it and said, hey, we just want to let you know they were absolutely torqued. That was not an issue that we had. So giving you the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to tell you someone else has now been into your motor. So if you want to bring it up here, we'd be happy to look through it and make sure that nothing else has been altered. But when it left, what you're telling us you have for a condition now is not what it happened.
that's pretty thorough. That's pretty good.
But you have to.
Yep. We record all of our phone calls in and out.
Yep.
I put a motor in a brand new Viper because we gave the guy the wrong jetting one time.
Really,
And I was able to track that down from this. And you know what the problem was? Is that our single nozzle jet chart was right here on the same cheat sheet as our dual nozzle right here. And he was bouncing from phone call to phone call. And he just happened to look at the wrong chart.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it happens, right? But to that, to make it right.
Right.
So you did something wrong and you lose money on that client. You make the situation right, and then you go back and you look, is it a personnel issue or is it a process?
And it was a process.
Yes, it was a process because you looked and said, we can't have these on the same sheet,
Yeah.
right?
It was literally whenever you got a guy that's jumping from tech call to tech call,
Yeah.
and his mind is just, and it's just, you have one of those days where your mind's just blown.
Yeah.
And something as simple as giving the right jet recommendation cost the guy a motor. And luckily the guy was super cool. And we put a motor in the car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's awesome. Awesome that you do the right
Yeah, the
thing.
guy called for 200 horsepower. We gave him 4.
Anyone happy with that?
No, he wasn't like, yes, I made 400. Luckily, in all the years I've been doing this, that's been the only one.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
been the only one.
What? I got
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
seriously.
I mean, we've had some stuff we had to fix. Like I had to fix a guy's motor that whenever we made those quick releases. Let me back up. Before we made quick releases, another company that makes release style thing had already made them, and so we were selling those. We were relabeling them. The design had a faulty design that is called O-ring explosion, and it would take, and the O-ring was porous, and nitrous oxide would get into it, and it would blow it up and kill the flow path. So that packed the cylinders full of fuel.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up having to fix that motor. And then the company that did it, all I asked them to do was to take all their product back, and they told me no. So I went into learning a lot about O-rings.
And unfortunately, that is the majority of the industry.
Right.
The hard part is to be the guy who does it.
Yep.
And
And then we had to do a recall. We sent out national recall on it. And it was a black eye for sure.
Yeah.
And so now we don't relabel anybody else's product.
Yeah.
Learned our lesson.
All right. So
So what did we just do there?
I was checking ring gap on 2. I left a top and second ring for us to file live. All the other ones are already done. So I'm just checking those 2 to figure out how much I got to take out. And we'll just
And
do that.
how
real quick.
important is ring gap? You always hear people talk about ring gap and bearing clearance.
I would say ring gap is extremely important. I
Okay.
mean, it's one of the most important things in the motor outside of bearing clearance, in my opinion.
And it's another thing of how they're doing it and how much, right?
It is,
Yes.
yeah, and that's one of those that we lean on the side of extra ring gap, and the reason for that is if we go Here's how the call goes. I called Dave and had him send me a kit, and we're going to put 125 shot on the car. Now we build for 125 shot, and he goes out, and for 6 months, that's really fun. But on month 7, he goes, I really want a little bit more. And it starts to grow. I want a little more boost, and it starts to grow, right? So when we have that conversation, when we look at it, if someone says, I want a 125 shot, or I want to put 10 pounds of boost on it, we're going to set up for some extra, right? We put the fudge that direction. Because by adding a little extra, not going crazy, but adding a little extra ring gap, we're going to have slightly more crankcase pressure. But that's the only downside to it. Okay.
Yep.
Now we go the other way, 125, and now they've worked their way. It's a 275 or a 300.
Right.
Butt rings. Now instead of having more crankcase pressure, we have all the crankcase pressure because we knocked the top off the piston. We hit the head with it. Now we damaged the head. The motor's huffing. It's a bad situation. So ring gap is extremely important, and we lean on the side and try to be as transparent with our customers about this as we can, in that we're going to set this thing up for what you're telling us, plus a little bit of fudge. And if you get a little extra crankcase pressure, that's okay. It's going
Right.
to hurt nothing. You're good. But if we butt rings, it's going to hurt everything, and you're not good. So let's lean that direction.
So what type of gap are you setting this up for?
So we are setting it up to 32 on top and 36 on bottom
Okay.
on the second ring. So that should give you all the clearance you need for.
And is that kind of y'all's average?
That's a pretty big ring gap.
Yeah,
Is it?
Yeah.
it is.
But it's
You just know I'm fixing to beat the snot out of it.
Yeah.
It's a big
Yeah.
nitrous use.
Right.
And a big nitrous use is going to get a lot of ring gap.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for a similar build for a turbo, with the same crank, same rods, maybe different pistons, but very similar build, I would run less ring gap.
Like 25 or?
No. Typically, and it ranges right around this power level would be 30 to 32.
Okay.
Yeah. See,
So-
and
So it's not a huge difference.
Yeah,
but
not a
it's
huge
enough of
difference, but it's enough. Yeah.
that's where we come back. It's we've got our, let's see,
kind of a range of.
thrust rods, top ring and second ring, figured based on born use.
Yeah.
So we've got this that gives them a standard.
Yeah.
And then outside of the standard, we go, okay, now what is different about this one? What do we need to take into consideration?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Very cool.
So I've measured the second. Now I just need to cut both of those, and we'll be good to put this thing together.
So this block has sleeves in it. And do y'all put the sleeves in, or they
I
come?
don't know. It comes from
Okay.
concept that way.
Cool.
Yep, so they come
Yep.
in their rough finish, so they come in undersized. So all we're having to do with this is hone the size, and then they come in with the press set where they want it. So you feel that
Yeah, I was feeling
they
that.
actually stick proud out of the above the deck surface, and that's for extra clamping force.
Okay.
But we align really closely to what their what they have found they like for press. So I think that's actually a sleeve. Yeah, that's a sleeve Marty's doing. So if you got on a check, that one is going to be pretty identical as far as the press they do on the sleeve. Matter of fact, the sleeves are even the same. So they're interchangeable from block to block. Now we do some minor differences in ours versus theirs that is nothing more than a preference. But when you look at these, you see how they're double cut all the way across. On ours, we do a double cut on the centers and a single cut on the outer. So this one actually is a full round.
Okay.
Again, a minor difference. They leave the aluminum in there, so you still have parent material to support it. So it's not an issue to do it this way. That's just they chose to machine and use a sleeve this way. We chose to do it that way. If we take our center sleeves, they fit all four of theirs.
Right.
So,
That makes
and
sense.
we could actually take our program, go in there, and do nothing more than machine this to a full round and drop our sleeves in it.
Okay.
And we will do that. The nice thing about these blocks is you take it, and we're 4155 now, and you go to a 65 and then an 85, and
Which
Then
is
we
why
get to
you
the-
told me let's start here.
right, yeah. So we're going to go through different life cycles of this motor, and then we're going to hit a point that you're 85, 86, and we just can't really get another good finish hone on it to go to an appropriate size. So we're going to flip it over, put some heat to it, knock the sleeves out of it, drop new sleeves in, and go right back to it.
Okay.
So it gives you really an indefinite use of the block. And being aluminum, we can window this block and weld it back up, remachine it, and keep going too. The aluminum gives a lot of capacity for failure and for use,
Okay.
which is really nice.
So whenever it comes to the, what do you call them? Fire hoops, O-rings, whatever.
Yeah.
What is your theory there between block and head and copper
In
gasket?
relation to what? Yeah.
So like, so my motor doesn't have an O-ring groove here, which would be a receiver groove, right? But my head has an O-ring or a fire hoop. How's that work?
I don't know.
I'm being curious about that.
It shouldn't.
It does. I probably should have told you that.
Yeah. But this is a good conversation right now. We need to cut a receiver groove.
Really?
That's what it comes down to. So I need to see the hoops that you're using, and we need to cut a receiver groove. Really.
Okay. I'm glad I dropped that on you.
Or
You just
get
got
rid of
Dave.
or get rid of the hoop. And that's just as easily done. We pull the hoops out, weld it up, and get rid of them completely. For your use, you don't need hoops.
Okay.
Like you're not at a power level. That is a requirement whatsoever. And I think it's probably, if you've been getting away with it, why? It's because you aren't at a power level that you need hoops.
Okay.
But if you're going to do one, you need the other. You're going to push that material somewhere. It's got to have somewhere to go.
Right.
So, yeah.
Maybe this head don't have. Maybe it's my old heads.
We'll see.
I don't know.
We'll get them off and see.
So my first set, this is why it just dawned on me. My first set that we put on mics, it didn't have the block, but it had the head. Right. We could never get that thing to seal up right
I don't know why.
because it was pushing between here.
You didn't have anywhere for it to go.
Yeah, and that's like we fought leaks all the time. So then it came down and machined a receiver groove in the block and it fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind it is you're putting a really hard material above a really soft material, and you're pushing the hard material through the soft material into a groove to create your zip lock vacuum, right? So if now you take this hard material and the soft material and another hard material with no groove, when you go in, instead you're just going to cut it.
Right.
All you're doing at that point is creating, a scissor, and you're going to cut a groove instead of creating a seal.
And would you still run a copper gasket if you didn't have?
I wouldn't. I'd run MLS. MLS seals so well on a 6-bolt setup. You can do really anything below 2,000. We don't even start the conversation about fuel.
Even with nitrous?
No, it's still a 6-bolt setup. And
A lot of this is probably adapted from years of that's the way it was, and now there's a
used to be you had to run copper and fuel hoops because there wasn't enough clamping force.
right.
That motor right behind you there. Once we've hit 1,200, I can't go beyond that with an MLS. Like I won't rate it at that. We've got to go to a fuel hoop because we only have 4 bolts to hold the head down. It's different design. And with this too, we have found, it's a 6-bolt setup. Most of our racers don't run the 6 bolt; they run the 5th, but not the 6th. And the time that we have been building,
Because it's a pain to take it out and put it in.
is. But in the time that we've been building, not once ever have I seen a head gasket blown up here.
No, it's always in between here.
It's here. It's here and here. That's where they
Oh,
go.
really?
So once you add this to it, it stops that. You're not going to blow it. Now, you can still torch everything in here, not because of clamping force, but because of condition. You have a lean condition or something like that's going to do that. But you're not going to lift it in here once you put this bolt in. Up here, you've got so much cylinder head that comes up bolting across the top that from here to here, you've got so much clamping force. It's just not going to come off. So we quit running them in our car too, because you could put them off, pull the heads and put it back on so much quicker between rounds if you needed to do some kind of maintenance.
Right.
That really slows it down. These you
Oh,
can
absolutely.
zip on and off. So when we found that we didn't have a need for it, we stopped using them. So we still offer it. They still go on all of our builds if you buy it as a 6-bolt.
So
It's gonna
people
come
don't
with a
call and be
6-bolt.
like, "Why isn't this on there?"
Right.
Right.
But
You put them on all.
yeah, but it really isn't needed.
So I just learned something. There you go. Yeah, it just dawned on me that my whole thought process of the copper gaskets comes from my LT1 days. It was a small block Chevy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff from the LT1 days that will make you cringe.
Yeah.
those things made a lot of people not want to race anymore. Is what they did.
I loved
Those
mine. I
were
loved the
really-
torque. Yeah.
The OptiSpark in it.
Well, I had a
Oh,
tech.
my
I had a shop that had technicians that had to deal with the OptiSpark. I didn't have to.
That's
I just beat on it. Right.
Just got to drive it. All right, I'm gonna cut these 2 rings. So
All right.
be a little
Come on
loud.
over here. So I think they lost internet. Yep. Do you have internet?
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
That's right. Speed test. Oh,
Might just be me. Clicking the wrong thing. Bradley said, "What's up, Kyle?"
oh.
John wants to know how much a sleeves Coyote motor is. There you go. I'm assuming it has a set 0, and then you tell it how much.
Yep. Yeah, so as soon as I put it in, I'll run it in and find a 0, and then I'll set it,
Uh huh.
and then I'll start removing material, and then checking. Doing it all day, every day, you learn how much you remove versus how much you're trying to remove. You know what I mean?
And this piece of equipment right here hasn't changed a whole lot over the years, has it?
No, not that I know.
I mean, I remember my grandfather
Yeah.
having the same piece of equipment.
Yeah, it may be a different color, but that's
Yeah.
tried and true.
So at the shop, they call those little last minute information drops that I'm good at. They're like, "Oh, you got Dave." And what it is my mind will slow down enough to pinpoint something, and I'm like, "Hey," and then it's like, What's the biggest cubic inch LS motor y'all build?
I build a 499 inch LS.
Okay.
Makes a 10200 build it on.
Oh wow.
So I can build in a standard hull deck block 479. It's going to be relatively common parts, but to get to the 499, you're talking. It is probably going to be around a $40,000 short block. So they go kind of crazy. You got to do a custom take on it, because the deck height's so tall.
Generally, something like that, is that like a Moses head type deal, or?
It's going to be some kind of like
Yeah.
some kind of wild head. I mean, to be able to support something like that, you need more than an LS head.
Right.
So it's going to be an LS head, just like it's an LS block. Other than bore spacing, there's nothing LS about it.
Okay. I get it.
But the most common, we very rarely get bigger than 440.
Yeah.
440 generally is our. So we'll go 440 in a standard deck, 441 in a tall deck.
Mm-hmm.
We go 447 in a tall deck with a big bore. But like our NA record so far was off of a 447. The most we've made off of one. That was a standard tall deck. What was that 447? 4125 by 4155?
4155 forward.
Yeah, it made a
So it's a 434 with 4125.
Okay.
And it made 1,038.
1034.
1,034.
Back then.
Yeah. So that's the biggest we've made, and what I would call a big functional LS. Not just being a big 479 that they built because they wanted to have a big cube motor. That was like the big, stable, strong. It turned. What did it peak at? 8,800 or 8,900?
It
I know we turned 92.
Yeah, we turned it 92 a few times on the dyno.
I bet that sounded pretty wicked.
Oh,
It did. What that is, a 450-inch LS, that's a big LS, and 9,200 RPM is not common. Most of what we see power outer stuff, so the RPM doesn't have to. You just don't have to wring its neck out like
Right.
that. So it was a nitrous motor is what it was. So it was a big head on the biggest reasonable motor we could build with as much nitrous they could pack into it. So it actually made that on a nitrous setup.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty impressive.
Really? That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was solid. But that's about as big as they get in what I would call a functional and attainable.
Right.
When we get into the really big stuff, it takes me a hard for it. We've done that kind of stuff, and it just takes a long time to source everything.
And then whenever it breaks, you're back to waiting again.
If you build something like that,
Buy extra.
you need to build two. Not build, but have the components to be able to. Because if you do, if you damage something in it, you're a year to get a part. Which is, that's where they just aren't. Honestly, if somebody is going to go that route, 99.99 times out of 100, they're going to go 520 or 540 or something like that.
Right.
They're just going to step out of a small block.
That makes sense. Makes sense. So whenever you start going to the bigger cubic inches, where are the problems? Is it the rod angle, the way the piston's sitting in the?
Yeah, so it's compression height, rod angle, and bore. When we get big enough on bore that we start having issues getting the head gasket to seal, or we can't get fuel hoops in it any longer, that becomes an issue. And then as our stroke grows, our rod angle and compression height, the rod angle gets worse, the compression height reduces, so you lose stability in the piston.
Okay.
So we can combat that by adding deck height. So when we go to a tall deck or a super deck, we can get that rod angle back where it should be. So what I like that 447, we came up with that combo because that was the most bore we were comfortably getting in the block we were using with the sleeve we were using. And we had the same rod angle and compression height as a stock stroke LS.
Okay.
So it gave us all of the comfortability of a stock stroke, you know, what was in essence a little 364, 370, like an LS3 that everything just grew on.
Right.
You know, so we were able to maintain a lot of stability by doing that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the compression height reduces, you know, you get down, used to be with the old piston design, getting under 1/300. So you get to like a standard 4-inch stroke or frankly a 1/100 compression height. That's where you'd start to see where people would complain about the skirt wear and things like that. But the piston design has changed quite a bit. You know, they're going to the design that's a lot wider at the base here. You know, originally these really came in. It was a small water piston they had modified for an LS. I mean, very minor modification. It was just the correct bore and pin height, and that was it, right? So when they started to box these, that stabilized it a lot. And by stabilizing it, it reduced the skirt wear a lot. So that was a really key point that now we're able to take a 1/100 compression height, which is a standard 4-inch stroke on a 6125 rod, and stay stable enough that we're not nearly as concerned about, you know, our piston speed creating or our rod angle creating a situation that we're going to have excessive skirt wear.
Okay. Now, I notice these don't really have a dome to them.
No, we originally had a dome set for you when I talked to you, and you told me, remember the cylinder head wound up being it was like 7 or 8 cc's less than we expected.
Yeah.
So it had been worked, and we were like, well, that's not going to work. So those went back out, and we moved to the flat top to get the compression back down. If we had stuck with what we had, you were going to be right around 14-1.
Yeah.
So
My
it's gonna be a lot
tuning window
more
would be
compression
like.
than you were. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yep.
that, you know.
So where are we at now? Like 12 and a half?
It's 12, 12.5, 12.6. Right
Somewhere
around
right
Perfect.
in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
It depends on
What head gasket?
yeah the deck height and that's where we can finalize it for sure.
I remember my last motor, I had to run a really thick head gasket
Yep.
because it was just too much compression.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get that too as you start to really wear on these decks. You know, rebuild after rebuild and blow up after blow up. As you're cutting the decks and it's getting shorter, you'll start to run into that too with some of the older blocks. That you're having to get a thicker head gasket to make up for it.
Yeah.
But if you're fresh here, so we're figuring at 52 right now.
Cool. And we're going to do an MLS gasket. It'll be interesting to see what's going on with that other block.
Yep.
I'll get it apart.
Oh no, you're good. Just want to make sure I don't forget it or anything.
Those specifically with the rounds on them.
What makes those first gen LSX blocks so weak?
Real quick, see how that's rounded? So it's round there and then flat.
Yep.
Where this one, if you look.
Mhm.
So this is what we'll run in your LSX, just to give a full round sleeve on the outsides.
Okay.
It was just a first design. There was a lot that changed actually. I think they were missing. I think they were just missing a lot of supports on it that needed to be there. They underestimated where
That
power capacity
was going
was
to
going to
go.
go in this market. I mean, because, you know, if you think about it, when that original LSX came out, that was
Everybody was like,
2004, probably.
that was a long
And
time.
what in 2004, a bad car in 2004 was making 1,300 or something, 1,200, something like that. And now, I mean, guys are taking these and doing true street classes, making 2,000.
Yeah.
You know, it's with the advance of the controllers. You know, the Hollywood tool techs that are able to take all of the power adders and truly take them to their limit has made it where power is no longer the issue. Like, you can make as much as you desire. It's everything around it that becomes the issue, you know? And that just wasn't the case when they designed that LSX. I think they put that thing together and went, yep, that'll hold 1,500. You know, I mean,
Back then, that would have been a lot.
yeah. Yeah, I still remember we did big block firework and put your what was that called? Stinger.
Mm-hmm.
Put the stinger on it. And what that firebird paid? They paid like $12.70 or something like that to the ground. Like way back with the original Stinger.
That car ended up making like 14. It was like 1430 with everything on. That was your brand new at the time giant trash can.
Yep.
With a dashboard fitting screwed straight into it, screwed straight into the plate.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that on the dyno and getting ready for leaving for one of the small tire outlaw deals and looking at the power and thinking, God, that's a lot of power. Like, I mean, that's like unfathomable to have this kind of power and go out and go this fast. And looking back on it now and going, that was a big block, in an all-out race car. And it was a push to go 490s, and now I've got more customers than I can count with air conditioning that drive their car to and from work and go fast.
That's crazy, isn't it?
And that's the difference in 20 years in technology.
Yes, that is true. Well, we got some thunder.
Hope it's not hail like it was last time.
I seen. She showed me pictures of it. So walk us through what's going on over here.
I am just putting the rods on the pistons, and then we'll put the rings on, and we'll be good to go.
So each side's got one clip.
Yep, one clip each side. And I always put one in first, oil everything, install the rod, and then slap the final clip in, which can be a pain, just like that.
Sweet.
We're married for now. So we will throw the rings on, and then
Stab it in, huh?
yeah, stab it all together, and we're good to go. Let me get everything reorganized. Like I do.
So the bottom is the compression ring and the top is the oil ring, right? Or is it the other way around?
Thompson compression.
Top's compression,
The
bottom's oil.
second ring is the scraper, and then you've got the oils all the way down here.
Okay.
Start putting them on.
You have a certain method to where you're lining up your.
I do every single one the exact same way. I offset every single gap in all the rings. The support rail I always put on the valve relief side, and then the oil on the opposite side, and then the scrapers or tensions I will offset. Surprised if I can talk and do this at the same time. But so right now, basically what I have is the first gap here, the other gap here, and then a gap here and a gap here,
Okay.
right? And then we'll finish it off with the top and second gaps over here. So
Okay.
every single one of them will be evenly spaced up across the piston.
All right.
And I do every single one the exact same way. And I'm sure, people have their own ways they like doing it and own theories. But that's the way I do it. I do every single one the same.
But the biggest thing you want to make sure you don't do is you don't line them all up,
They're
Correct.
gonna
Yeah.
move.
right?
So eventually they're going to go through a phase where they line up and come back out of alignment again. But setting them up this way is his absolute best chance in keeping them from lining up as long as possible. And they do, they're going to go back to being misaligned again
Okay.
to the point that it's no longer doing it. But you will see that in a leak down. You like that is something we have proven where you go through and you do a leak down and it's like that hole's low and you can pop it out, take the rings and spin it, or go out, put heat in it, just drive around and come back and come right back. And it's just because they're slowly moving and they'll get where they've realigned themselves where they're a little happier again.
That makes sense, but I
they-
never thought about that.
Yeah, they come and go.
Okay. And the rings are directional to as far as up and down,
Yes.
and that's got to do with the way the edge is cut.
Yep.
What happens? You put it upside down. Leak by.
That's an old racer's trick. It makes it faster.
Less.
can't tell
What
you
is it
what
called?
happens.
Restriction or what's that word for drag? Restriction.
Reduces the drag.
I don't know. Friction. Friction.
Yeah,
That's
there's-
friction.
You want them upside down, you don't have to worry about friction. There'll be a lot of oil out there.
Right, yeah.
Lubricates the combustion chamber so the fire can get out easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Whenever we ran hood to hood, after every pass, I'd dump about that much oil out of the catch can. It was all coming from number 4.
Really? Was it foul and plug?
That's what happened in eliminations.
Foul and plug?
First round, I got up there and somebody got some on the track, and I sat there and idled. And but Kyle Thompson also is the one that does all computer stuff. I'm sorry, Mike Thompson. He said that he had changed the fuel delay, and that might have missed it as we went up in the horsepower. But I have a feeling I fouled the plug because every time you make we were only doing 330 hits. You pull it out and the plug be oil fouled big time. Yeah.
330 hits.
Because we were just trying to. I knew that. Remember, as soon as I made NA pull, it did that, but I wanted to make that race. I knew that I had a window, so
So now you're pulling.
I could tell by the 330 if I was going to be close to the 490 index. So,
Gotcha.
so we got that ironed out, and Madman was there to get the suspension ironed out, but we never had to touch it. Like he gave us a walkthrough before we went there, and the car just did what it was going to do. Yeah. So
So have you already pulled from the motor stick?
yeah, it's sitting there. I got to drill because I was running factory in Stitch. I was running the factory cam sensor and crank sensor. So I ordered a kit. I got to drill the cam gear for the aftermarket pickup sensor. And other than that, I'm ready to put it in. Yeah. So I did that last night.
What operating system are you on?
Holly. There's for the front cover. There's a plug like bracket that goes right there that the cam sensor screws into.
Okay.
Who makes that?
Plug bracket.
Yeah, I'll show you. So I need to buy another one, but I looked online last night, and I have no clue who makes it.
Just the magnetic pickup base?
Yeah,
I would bet like ICT or someone. Hey Ryan, look at this. My bet would be someone like ICT.
I was like, okay, I'm going to have my guys make it, but we'd be doing it on a manual machine,
Yeah.
and that's just not good for time. Somebody's got to offer
It's just a
that.
magnetic pickup holder.
What sensor is it? Like whose sensor are you using?
MSD, and so this right here, so it's the Holly sensor, right? Cam sensor, and that bolts to the front cover. You just take the stock cam sensor out, it bolts to the front cover, and it gives you a threaded insert instead of a O-ring insert for it to
gotcha.
push into.
What do you need another one for?
Well, I stole the one off the one that was in orange juice to go on this one, so I'm
So you
going
just
to.
need another one for this one.
I'm just going to need another one whenever I put this one together.
You just not wanting to run a factory sensor?
I mean, I guess I could.
It'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as good.
I'm not. Have you seen any issues?
I haven't. Honestly.
All it's giving you is a 180 out.
Right.
That.
Well,
So
the,
you
the
can run
1X
with.
ours, the 4X is not. The 4X is actually it's looking at a pattern.
Okay,
Those
but
are not
but
equidistant.
it's still. Oh, I guess you could do cam timing with it. Never mind. That makes
Yeah,
sense. I see.
Injector phase tuning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was gonna say all you're doing is changing whether or not it's waste volume, and I forgot that absolutely does play a role. So but you still can run a 4X GM cam sensor and do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Like to get you through until you can get something figured out, you can definitely.
Well, I have it. I don't have to change anything if I just take that off this front cover and put it over on this one.
Yeah.
But whenever I put it back in stitch,
Yeah, I think
You
the
want
advantage.
to go wire to wire and not have to rechange. I got
Yeah.
you.
I think the advantage to what you've got there is you can set the depth on it. You know, which you can't do with a factory
Right.
sensor, but that's really an issue with it too.
But
So
you can set the depth, and I'm sure that's a little more precise when you look at it on a graph. I would have to think. I don't know. I know some of the aftermarket stuff is worse than the factory GM stuff.
you know, like on stitch, I have the Innovators West hub, right? And
Yeah,
it's
the
a
big one
it's
that's
a
like a crown.
overdrive or underdrive or whatever.
the big-
So I called them and said, "Hey, I need a crank sensor, the wheel."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Why do you need one for that big? That's not very common."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Because that's what I got." I don't know. So they sent me one.
MSD for a trigger?
No, I called Innovators West
Okay.
because I have their underdrive or overdrive or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that F1X. Did you figure out which F1X you have?
No. I keep everything in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I can tell you. But my
That's
mind just doesn't.
Yeah.
That's like you could ask me what rear end gears in my car, and most people would know, and I'm like, oh, I gotta look at my
Do
spreadsheet.
you remember
I
about?
think it starts with a 3 or maybe a 4.
Yes.
Do you remember about when you bought that F1X?
It's been a year now.
It's probably a different F1X.
A year ago, they still had. A year ago, they had like 4 X options.
Well, I know they switched from the F1X12 to calling it an F3 112.
Oh, really?
Like 2 or 3 years ago. Don't quote me on that, but
I'll have to look it up because right after I got I wrecked at the top of Ennis, the truck turned in front of me.
yeah, I remember that.
It trashed that F1A94 that was on there, so I had to buy an F1X. And then, well, I mean, it's like might as well go bigger. And then I flipped it first full pass, and I trashed that blower, and so I had to buy another blower.
Blowers may be dangerous for you. You might want to stick.
Driving is dangerous for me. And you know, so on the F1A94, I had a 300 shot on the first kit and a 300 on the second kit on a button, and I just hit it to push them out. Well, then whenever I put it on Dwayne's dyno, he's like, "Man, you don't need near that much nitrous anymore."
Yeah.
And so I turned the second kit off, and I just put the first kit on a button, and I peeled it down to 200. So whenever it was coming down from that wheelie and it was rolling all the timing in, I already had it in my head. I was grabbing the button, and that's what got me.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, it was already starting to shift the rear end, and then you see the pipes light up, and there was no progress. It was just
All
let it
200.
eat. Oh yeah,
I bet 200 on a blower like that made a lot more than 200 too.
dude, that truck, that pass, the way it felt good.
I bet.
Yeah,
Until it didn't.
until it didn't. I was like, "What is going on?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm wrecking." I was upside down, and it threw my equilibrium off. You know, like literally, I was already bouncing off the wall before I even realized I was wrecking.
Really?
Yeah, because if you watch the video, it kicked it and it bit so hard that it just rolled the truck right there, and then I hit him, and then I hit the wall. Head on. And then I slid past 8th mile.
Did you tip your cage builder when you got out?
Man, it didn't even truck didn't have everything's and I'm OCD about my belts. I wasn't sore or nothing.
Really?
Mm-mm.
I'm bad about getting in and popping these back loose.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I get in and pull them down. If
You
I
don't-
get too
you don't
high,
like
I
feeling
get
restrained?
in it. Nope.
Oh.
I don't like the feeling of being pinned in it.
I think that was probably the difference of me not hurting at all.
Yeah.
And then the whole time I was sliding down the road, I was like, okay, do I have a fire? And I'm just looking around.
All right. Y'all ready to move on?
Yeah. So now we're stabbing pistons in, right?
Yep, we are ready.
Now, every now and then online, you see somebody's got the pistons upside down. Have you seen that?
What do you mean? It's like installed upside down?
Eyebrows.
Yeah, the eyebrows
Oh,
are wrong
really?
way.
I saw one on Marketplace. Well, I'm not even bring up actually, it was one of the big sales
Yeah.
pages. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I wonder how this is going to go. You know? So sick of it. We're going to need it again here in about 3 or 4 months.
That means testing just got rained out at Ferris, more than likely. They were racing late last night. They didn't have no rain.
It was bad here.
I had guys text me at midnight last night.
All right.
Huh?
He went to lunch.
Who?
Dustin.
Oh.
He said you left at lunch.
Oh, get in there.
Don't let me forget to give you all the parts out of the truck. I'll be to Waco and look in the back seat and be like,
Oh, you still have some in the truck?
heads and all that stuff for Mike's motor.
Glad we waited till it was raining.
So,
It was pumped.
another me.
Inside.
So on Mike's motor, he just got all the new heads and stuff, and he was going to re-ring it, and then that's when we started talking about oil pressure, and he said, "Take it to Kyle, let him go through it." So the car he's running, he bought in high school, bought it brand new.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so whenever his boys were born, he got burned out of racing, and the boys started getting into racing dirt bikes. So he parked the car in the trailer in the enclosed, and it sat there for 10 years. And then whenever he started helping me again, he got the fever again. He pulled it back out, and here we go again.
Really?
Most people get rid of it. You know what I mean? So he still had his motor and everything. It's kind of cool.
That's a long time to let them sit and then actually stop and do something.
Yeah.
I feel like once it hits that point, it usually is the problem of your heirs after you're dead, you know?
Yeah.
Once you hit the 10-year mark, it's never going to come back, not in your lifetime, you know?
He literally parked the car, trailer, everything. Just
Really pulled out, put your tires on, put the track.
well, he had taken the motor and everything out of it and parked it.
He was like prepared for just letting it sit for a long period of time. Oh, yeah.
It just got burned out, you know. And of course, he's got a speed shop, and that's lives it every day. And then you go race it, and that's your hobby. And then whenever you lose fun in your hobby, you get to take a break. I'm sure you know. Yeah. It was all the time.
I mean, we were like 23 races a year. And May of
Are you starting to miss it any?
Not racing myself. I'm enjoying a lot more now going to support customers and helping with them getting cars tied in or dialed in and doing that sort of thing, you know. So one day I'll come back to it, but for right now I'd rather support them.
I get it. I think that's the offset of Mike and I. Is all last year we ran his car,
Yeah.
and I got to take a break from the whole stress of dealing with that. Financially, the break really. But I was, and now, and you know, we've offset. Then he'll help me, and I'll go help him where it's good. All right, give us some pointers. What are we doing here?
We're just going through down the line, A through 1, installing them all, and just checking it all as we go. So far, it's good to go. Might check.
And you're checking the distance of what comes out of the hole.
Yeah.
And let's say it came out of the hole too much. What would be the fix?
Thicker head gasket or a shorter hull.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you've got to the point that the deck height's too low to make it usable anyways. But that is all stuff that should be taught long before it makes it here.
Right.
When we put it on the blueprint center and runs through, it's got alarms that will tell us if we've gone beyond the usable limit.
Oh, okay. Now talk to me about, because back in the day everything was get the piston coated and do this and do that. That's just to reduce the heat on the piston.
Coatings have several different uses. So you can coat for things like heat. You can coat for things like shedding oil, reducing friction. I mean, there's a million different things you can coat for. Anymore, like now, we really don't see much for coating unless it's a real high output methanol builder or something like that, and that really is a key thing. The skirt coating and all that was really popular. Everybody realized pretty quickly that the majority of the vehicles that those were going in were street driven, and it wear through the coating so quickly that it didn't serve a whole lot of purpose. So you don't see it as often now,
Okay.
unless it is a really specific use. And it's a whole different coating we're doing now.
Really?
What we're doing now versus what used to be on all of them is just an entirely different product and use. But it's like any of them. Yeah, I think initially they were coating the skirts because they were doing anything they could to mitigate the unwanted skirt wear.
The wear, right?
Because there was a lot of skirt wear, but when they figured out how to design a piston that was stable, then there was no longer a need for that because it was stable enough that it wouldn't do that anymore. You wouldn't need that premature wear.
Okay. See, most of my little bit of the motor knowledge I have is that dated.
Right. Well, and it changes so fast. It really does. I mean, I'm just like being in nitrous or anything else like we were talking about with the alcohol stuff. It just all changes so quickly. I don't think it used to, but I think technology has allowed us to try things much faster than you ever could before.
Right.
Now we've got equipment in this shop that would allow us to build anything and everything we could possibly imagine just because we think it would be cool and want to try it. Where 50 years ago, if you wanted to do a tenth of the process as we did, you had to go to a mega shop because no one could afford to have the equipment to do it. And when they did it, it was still all manual. So it still took several times. It was a lot of trial and error. Now, you draw something up. I have Kalen, one of my guys here, draw it up and what's that, SolidWorks or whatever, Fusion 360 or one of those that he uses. It draws something up and it's like, okay, let's go.
Yep.
Let's try it.
That's the way we do.
And stand back and wait, and let's see what happens. So the ability to advance in the industry is a lot more at your fingertips now than it ever was.
It's a lot more common for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even I told you we're headed out of town for another piece of equipment for the three of us to go do training on just that. Bringing stuff in and out of Fusion and 360 and getting it to this new table that we've got coming and being able to have stuff that we can do nothing more than rapidly build and test off of.
That's cool.
I'd imagine your podcast would normally go this long.
No,
It's all good though.
it'll be one of those where they just fast forward, click
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
pick the points they want.
Can you do it in a podcast where you go through and put the like interrupt points where people can fast forward to certain segments of it, like you do in a YouTube video or something?
I could probably do that later
Yeah.
in YouTube. Yeah, like put timestamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see where he laid the crank and where he talked about the
Yeah. I'm not too sure about Facebook, but I know I could do it.
Just see that we went from doing one race to a series.
Oh really?
6 races now.
I got out of hand. Good job, Dave.
Yeah, my wife is real impressed with that choice. Yeah, so now
Where are they all at the same location?
no. So we're it started with hood to hood. And then I got Jay Bodie's Grudge Fest came on. And then I'm like, well, I might as well turn this into a point series. That just makes sense, right? Just stopped right there. But instead I called Justin, Keith, and Chase for Streetcar Takeover. And they're like, hell yeah, come on. So now we're doing Gainesville, April 25th. Then we come to Texas Motorplex for Streetcar Takeover. And then we go to ZMAX. And then we go to, where do we go from there? We go somewhere else.
Kentucky.
We go to Kentucky.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Way out.
And then Missouri. I don't know why I did that, but that's how I'm programmed. And then I go, oh shit, now I got to fill the car count. So that's where I'm at right now.
So now you do nitrous fittings, alcohol, race promoter, professional race car driver.
It's
You
the
just need
it's
to
the
add-
ADHD.
You need to add an amateur tattoo artist, and you are set.
Go get me a remote control car motor and a
Yeah.
pin, a little. Do some jailhouse tattoos. Yeah, so like the hood to hood race is up to 21,000 on payout for that one class. Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's pretty awesome when you put it together and it just rolls like this. I mean,
That fast.
tells you something.
I knew there was a hole there because right now it's either you run 490 or you be able to belt for heads up races. 420s are better now.
Yeah.
You know, so there's really no window there for those guys that are running in that area. So, and so since I don't feel that I can successfully put on hosting the class and drive my car, Mike, the guy you got the motor for, is driving the car. Him and Madman are turning
I
my
figured
car.
you'd have given up the other side. I'm going to drive it and let someone else.
I wish. Like that's Mike and Roger. Both of those guys are my sidekicks. You know what I mean? Like if I'm working on the car, one of them are there. Mike works on it more than anybody, so it only makes sense that he's the guy that drives it,
Yeah.
and he'll treat it like it's his. So I told him, I said, look, I want to be able to put the race on and not be distracted, but I want the car there for everybody that's helped me with the car.
Tell him to treat it like it's his, not like it's yours. Not or treat it like it's his, not. treat
It'll
it
be
like
better
it's
off
yours.
if he treats
There
it
we
like
go.
it's his instead of mine. I'm hard on stuff. And we might actually have a chance of winning because if anybody see me on the tree, we're not going to win.
You gotta have a 470 car to compete in the 490.
Yes, yeah. It's like they're like, okay, Dave, try the red light. I'm still like at hood to hood during the 330, and I was trying to cut real lights, and it was like 117 to 119
Yeah.
every time. And I finally got an 040. I'm like, yes! Like, oh, we can do everything but make Dave drive.
What do we do this time? 'Cause I don't know how I did that.
And then we bought me a Christmas tree setup.
Yeah.
So we finally put a.
all day, gets really hungry, and his hand gets shaky, and they come off the button real fast.
I'll give you a good laugh. We finally put a camera in the car to see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm doing. And it's every time. So I light the top bulb, I light the second bulb, and I look away from it. It's like a nervous twitch or something. And then I go, oh! You know, I'm like, I gotta go. And it was every time.
Really?
So I'm in instant catch up. The trees already started dropping whenever I'm rotating my head back. And they're like, "You're doing this every time," and I'm like, "I have no clue." So now I'm constantly going up there, and I'm like,
Make nitrous kids.
yes. And I've developed where I can't see very well, and I never wear my glasses, so then I'm up there like this. And so this last time we went out, the key to my 040, which is still terrible, was these.
Yeah.
And just paying attention. So maybe I'll get better.
Try LASIK.
I need to. You know, I never even wore glasses until I hit 40.
Really?
You almost there?
I'm there now.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just turned 40.
Well, I started looking at spark plugs, and then I would go up to the line after lining out a tune-up, and I started second guessing what I'd seen.
Yep.
And then I went in, and the first time I had an eye doctor's test since high school, and he's like, "You need glasses." And I'm like, "What?" And then so whenever I went over there to get my glasses test fitted, I was telling her, I don't think he knew what he was talking about. Like I was convinced because he rushed me through, you know, right eye, left eye. And she was fitting them, and she goes, "Can you see across the parking lot? And there's a Target over there." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Can you see the number on the edge of the building?" I said, "Yeah." She took off glasses. She goes, "How about now?" I'm like, "Holy shit, I'm blind." Yes. So. And it makes a difference now whenever I'm driving. If I have my glasses on, I can see street signs as they're coming up. Used to, they were just a sign. You couldn't read what was on there.
Wait till you pass it, turn around.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you got?
Fourth rod.
How many Ugga is that?
Oh, 88 foot-pounds. I
88.
like to do that one exact.
We just guess on the rest. I have a torque wrench in my toolbox that you don't want to use because it's my breakover bar.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it happens.
I'm always like, don't use that one.
Old Husky one or something.
Craftsman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So we don't get the how much horsepower will this handle cause as much, but we get the how much can I spray.
Yeah.
And we have to explain to them it depends on how the motor's made.
Yep.
To talk to their engine builder, but we can kind of factor by cubic inch how much nitrous it should be able to digest, and we can go from there. But there's so many different
That'd
build
probably be a good
aesthetics there.
conversation to sit and have one day, but I have, in our conversations, what we have come up to is the rule of thumb is 50%.
Yeah.
Whatever you can make for power, you can get 50% through it. From 90% of the builds, that does it. Until you get to the people who truly know and understand how to make nitrous function, and then you can get a lot more through it.
What do you do with boost? Kind of the same.
Cram it.
So
So
it's
boost
a
is,
little bit.
you know, like I don't have to make the motor consume boost. Boost is making the motor consume it for itself.
Right.
You know, but with nitrous, I have to make you have to make sure it can consume it, because if you get too much in too fast or do it wrong, you're
Right.
just going to fill a plenum and knock it off the top of the motor. So that's where we've come up with, you know, if it'll make 800 on motor, it'll take 400, and we can pretty confidently say just about anything out there is going to do that if you're even relatively intelligent about how you do it.
Right.
But, you know, when you get the guys who call and they want, you know, 850 horse motor, and they say they're going to put 600 through it, and it's like, okay, we need to have a real conversation, because I know how likely it is that that's going to happen successfully. So let's talk
Right.
about what your intent is and how you plan to
What's
do
your
that,
tuning
you know?
capabilities?
Yeah, I bought a Fender with one kit and no progressive control. I'm just going to hit it. I'm like, no, you're not. You know. So that's where you got to talk. You know, for us, that's where we got to talk about it. But it'd be nice to sit and talk to you one day about it.
Ours is simple, you know, based off of how your build is. We do a ×5. So take the cubic inch, times it ×5.
Okay.
That's your pounds per hour. And then if you got a guy that's not talking pounds per hour, we take the pounds per hour and divide it by 3.6, and that's our horsepower.
Okay.
All right. A lot of these applications where we're really, really pushing the snot out of it, we'll go to 5.5 at most. 5.5, you really kind of get to the point in some of these builds where it's not making any more power. It's just hurting parts.
Yeah.
But a lot of these bigger motor type things, like these 959s and stuff, that math has kind of changed a little bit. We got some that we're actually doing quite a bit more.
Really? So using your math and figuring on a 427,
mm-hmm.
what would you? That's all you need at 427.
So yep. So I would take a 427, right? And let's talking to an average guy. Motor's built like it should be, and he goes, "What's the max?" And this is a guy that's just wanting to know what's my max safe. I'm going to say times 5. So that's 2,135 pounds per hour. I divide that by 3.6. 593 horsepower. Now the guy's like, I'm racing jet restricted class. You know, where's my window? What's the most I can put to this thing? And he really, really wanted to play it. He's probably going to tear it up type thing. Let's say 427 times 5.5. 2348 pounds per hour. So divide that by 3.6, 652 horsepower. You know, we're really at that window. I feel comfortable saying 5, no more than 5.
Yeah.
But some of these guys, we're putting quite a bit more through it.
Yeah.
But it's going to come down to your tuning window.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like what we're telling them is safe.
Yeah. So like that 434 that I had, I was running a 136 jet in it, which is class restriction. I'm already pushing the window of what that motor could handle, which is why the small block nitrous area there in ultras, everything else is getting so much faster. And other than a weight break, there's not a whole lot. They could give us more jet, but we can't put more jet in it without hurting it. You know what I mean? So 434 times 5 is 2170. So that's 602. I sprayed 650 on it, which would be your 5.5. So, you know, you're at that point where you're going to be putting pistons in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have to agree.
Uh-huh.
Times 5
Yep.
divided by 3.6.
That's your horsepower. So you'll get your guys that are nitrous guys, all they want to talk is pounds per hour. Because pounds per hour is a real number. Because like some nitrous guys will use a divide by 4. Well, from what we found, just playing with different things, the 3.6 is the more close divider to a true horsepower number. And that's where I struggled getting into doing some of this boost and juice stuff, because people are like, I got this T whatever and whatever. I don't understand none of that stuff. I understand thousandths whenever we come talking to a nitrous jet, but so many different housing options and stuff now. I don't know what the capabilities are of
Even
certain
that
things.
changes. That's another thing. What we used to believe was possible with specific turbos changes year over year. You know, we had a lot of where you'd have a conversation on like a single 88. You're like, well, you know, we know what that'll make, and then you got Jose over there that's going through and modifying these, modifying the housings and the wheels and everything, and it gets done. And I'm like, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would say you're lying.
Right.
But I know it's doing it, but it steps outside of what I thought was possible with a turbo that size. You know, so it just is constantly changing. But back to the
technology
original
deal.
conversation, you know, we've got to a point now that you don't have to go to some major manufacturer and wait months for them to make a different wheel. You walk in back and hit enter and wait for it to come off, and then you lay the thing in and test it. And I think that they're just able to go, I wonder what would happen if we rolled this edge or changed this by half a degree. You know, when it's so easy for these, and I say easy relative. It's easy compared to how it was.
Compared to what?
To be able to go in and test some of this and go, okay, that worked, or oh, okay, we don't want to do that again. That didn't work at all. You know.
Yep.
it's hard to keep up with all of them. I mean, if you just get them every day, it's hard to keep up with all of them. Dave, you got
Sweet. Look at there.
Put all the nitrous in it.
No melted edges.
that'll
Let's
come.
get the holy water.
Well, any questions for you on?
No, I don't. I think it'll be interesting to see if my heads have fire rings or not, because I don't remember. I can ask Sean and he'll tell me.
Yeah.
So, would you stamp your name in it or serial number?
I can if you want. Let me put my name on
Yeah, absolutely.
He
The
does.
serial number. Although that would be cool. Look, my name's on that block.
Your name's on a lot of balls.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that goes on the paperwork, huh?
Yep.
Gotta hit it like you mean it.
I don't know.
Take the ear off of it.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle. We're gonna wrap this thing up. Tell us where we can find Thompson Motorsports.
ThompsonMotorsports.net on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
And TikTok.
TikTok.
And TikTok. And what's your web address?
ThompsonMotorsports.net.
All right.
All right.
And you guys seen it. Motors are ready to go. And y'all do financing.
We do. Got 0% for 12 months.
So there you go. You blow your motor up or just want to upgrade, a little tight on cash, they can help you out.
Got it.
So
Let's do it.
all right. Well, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
That's our longest